Adventures of Superman, John Kent, issue 3, Tom Taylor writing with Clayton Henry on the art. So, obviously, in the last issue, Injustice Superman snapped the neck of Ultraman. And this issue is very much just him and John getting to know each other. You know, John waking up to find a good, friendly version of Lex Luthor as Matt's dogs go apeshit. So, yeah. But the big thing here is that basically this Clark wants to show John, look at this better world we've built. And Diana keeps warning, he may not understand our methods. And he tells John about what happened to Lois. You know, it happens off panel, so we have to hear the whole thing. But basically talks about her dying. So all this is going on, and of course John can't not get involved. He encounters this world's Damien at one point in the book. And Damien, of course, is working against Batman. And, you know, we get a little bit of that going on there. Damien.
So how familiar? Okay, go ahead.
So Damien seems to be on Superman's side with
Yes.
controlling the world, right? So, and to answer your question that I think you're about to answer, I know the broad strokes at the start of it.
Okay.
I like even if I knew all the game story, like Taylor's comic ran for a long time. Like he could have done so much in that time.
And I read one trade during the pandemic. I got the first trade of Injustice because I put it off for so long because I didn't want to read an evil Superman story. But then after reading so much Tom Taylor, I was like, I'll give this a shot. And I hadn't got to the point yet where Bruce and Damian are on opposite sides and Dick is dead, and that type of stuff. So I'm just wondering, like, what makes this Batman different than, you know, to make Damian side with Superman over Batman? So that was the main question that I had.
Yeah, no idea. Well,
Gotcha.
no, I think it sort of like tells you in this issue. Actually, it tells you that Damian blamed himself, as did Bruce, for Dick's death, and that drove him away and drove him towards Superman's side of things. But the big thing of this issue, though, is that John is being told that this world's better, that they've cleaned up the Earth, and, you know, he's flying, and he's like, yeah, the air feels cleaner, there's no noise, there's no screams, there's no danger, seemingly. And it almost feels like, oh, maybe he's going to be convinced that this is the way forward, that maybe this Superman's onto something. But the big thing at the end, and I think this is the perfect way to end this part of the story, which is like, okay, but what's going to convince him that this Superman isn't quite right, that he's gone too far? You know, he's not Ultraman, but that he's doing something in a way that he can't get on board with. And it's when he hears someone scream, he has a child falling off of a fire escape or whatever, and he swoops in and saves them, takes the kid up to like where the parent is, and the parent is thankfully to have the kid back, but then gets scared and apologizes and promises that it won't happen again. You know, the mum's not relieved that her child's okay. She's terrified that someone with that Superman S on his chest is going to retaliate. And that's what, you know, that's the final moment, is that John's like, she feels fear. And this world's quiet, not because they're at peace, but because they're all holding their breath because they're scared of Superman. And that is a perfect ending point, I think, for this.
Yeah.
You know, part of the story, which is John just sort of learning what this world is. I think this was a really neat way, because I could have seen the story being, when it was setting this up in the first half of the issue, I could have seen this taking issues of him slowly questioning things and noticing things.
Yeah.
But this just having one regular person be scared of him for no reason tells him everything he needs to know, to at least know how he feels about it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I like that him realizing, like, it's not better. It's not quiet because it's better. It's quiet because people are holding their breath. It's this whole idea that, like, yeah, everything can look like it's put together, but if it's out of fear and not out of, you know, their will and togetherness, that's something that's completely antithetical to what we've read in Taylor's John, right? Who will stand up to a dictator, you know, because it's right.
There is a little bit in the middle where it almost feels like this Clark and John are maybe going to bond over something, because Clark's talking about how, oh, your Superman's not done any of this stuff, he doesn't get involved, right? And John's like, yeah, he doesn't. And what did we talk about a lot in Taylor's time with John is that
Yeah.
he was establishing that John would get involved in political ideas. He would go to protests.
Right.
He would get involved in things that Clark would stay out of because he feels like he was born here. He feels more equal to the humans here, and I guess in that sense, in terms of his nationality or whatever. So the idea that he actually, in a weird way, could kind of connect to this Clark over that for a little bit, it kind of sets you up that, maybe he is going to be on his side for a bit before he realizes. But then I think this ending does a good job of very quickly saying, this is why you realize something's wrong here. Yeah. So.
Well, I like that too, because it's like, Dad always said it wasn't my place. And the Injustice Superman's like, I used to believe that too. And then he kind of hints at what happened, without exactly telling John, that the Joker had killed Lois while she was pregnant. Well, not the Joker. The Joker was responsible, right, for Superman doing it. But yeah, so, and I wonder how John's gonna process what led to it, because he's gonna have to find out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is that I think that's a really important detail that I think people forget when they're talking about Injustice Superman. It's not just that pregnant Lois died. Right. It's that Superman was tricked into doing it. Like that. Right. That's a really important detail that would mess up anyone, I think. So
yeah.
Yeah. So it's I think it's interesting seeing one of our regular main, Earth heroes interact with this universe, which up until now has been this very separate thing. That's the video games and it's the comic book that ties into it. It's just been that on its own. So it's very interesting to see this established universe be kind of like discovered and the reactions of our regular heroes. Although admittedly now I'm saying that, like, part of the plot in the game, from what I remember, is that some of like the regular heroes from another Earth do end up in the Injustice Earth, and that's some of who the good characters are.
Oh wow, okay.
Now, admittedly, I'm sure technically now it's not Earth Zero, because that would be the heroes from our main comics, but in that video game there is a regular universe where Superman didn't go evil, and there's characters from that Earth who end up in the Injustice. I don't know. It's been a while since I played some of it, but there was something like that. I want to say like Batman and Green Arrow were sneaking around, been like, what the hell's going on? Why is Superman the dick here? So yeah. So no, I think I think the story ideas and the character beats for John are really good in this. I'm always a little bit mixed on Clayton Henry art. It's always a bit clean, and the four heads aren't too bad here, but everything is. It does have a very sort of flat cartoon look to it at times, which I'm not super in love with in this particular style.
Yeah, it's not bad though. It is lacking that dynamic style of art that we've kind of seen in other Taylor stuff.
Yeah, I'll give it this credit though. Like when John reacts at the end to his realization of why everyone's quiet, the expression on his face does give you a lot. It's not like it's not doing some of the work that it's supposed to.
Sure, for sure. Yeah, I'm wondering how Wonder Woman's going to play into this too, just because we haven't really. I'm trying to think. Have we really read a Tom Taylor Wonder Woman, let alone one that's sided with a broken Superman? So I don't want to even call him an evil Superman, because he's not even like evil like Ultraman. He's just Yeah, he's everything he comes from, he thinks he's doing the right thing. Right.
Yeah. I think sometimes I just say evil when I'm talking about him because it's just shorthand. But
of course. I
think the implication here is that Wonder Woman and him are a thing. After Lois is dead, and it's interesting the way she says, like, he's her son. That's one of her lines at one point. It almost feels like there's a bit of coldness coming off of it. Yeah.
So like I've never read Taylor really write Wonder Woman. They've only been differing Earths, like Dark Knights of Steel, that Diana and stuff. So but so curious to see how she plays in this with John. Like it wouldn't surprise me if she ends up being the bigger villain, right? Of this, because again, Superman, like I feel like once John finds out why Superman did this, he's going to be a little bit more forgiving, but maybe he's going to try to redeem this Superman.
Also, there was an interesting little bit here where maybe I was misreading this, but I felt like at one point this Clark implied that he would like to visit where John's from.
Oh no!
And that makes me wonder, like, what happens if that goes through?
Right. Right.
What happens if he sees the regular Lois or the regular Clark or everything else that's going on? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is he a threat, or does meeting like regular Superman, does our regular Superman? I mean, it probably won't because this is John's book, but I'm just imagining a scenario where regular Superman is able to like inspire this Superman to like sort of return to be more Superman-y, but
to be better. Yeah.
I don't know. But it's John's book though, so if anything, it would be John that inspires it. And it does kind of make sense because he's kind of the son that he was going to have, but died. You know, with his wife. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic there.
And I feel like that's Taylor's thing that he likes to do. Like, he likes to make things really dark, but he also likes to give a shred of light. And, you know, Injustice was his book that he was writing, like, based off the concept from the video game. So if this was an ending that he'd want, like, Superman to eventually be redeemed, who better do it than, you know, his son from another universe?
This is the thing with Deceased and, to an extent, Dark Knights of Steel and what he's doing here with John. When Taylor uses these other versions of things, or he does these Elseworlds, he always uses the wacky, like, fun, like, mashups or whatever he's doing to actually tell a story. They're not just like cheap references. You know, everything we're saying here like makes a lot of sense. The idea that this version of a son that he never got to have might inspire him is actually quite strong as a story idea, strong as a character beat, and it makes sense. And it's obviously a good opportunity for John to like help a version of his father who's like this. It's maybe the most impossible task he's ever had. But it's quite interesting, especially in the follow-up of like being reminded of all this Ultraman stuff, where he's met this really bad version of his dad, and it's really traumatic for him. This is one who's bad, kind of, but one that can maybe be rehabilitated, one that he can help, one that he can improve, and feel like he's made a difference with.
Yeah, in wrestling terms, he's a tweener, right?
Sure.
And I feel like that's here with Injustice Superman, is we're not supposed to like him, but he did, you know, help the climate crisis, which was something that John was focused on throughout his Superman book. So, but yeah, with 3 issues left to go, right? It's 3 of 6?
Yeah, 3 or 6, yeah.
We still have a lot of story in here. Like, I feel like it's taking its time in a good way. Like you said, it didn't decompress enough to where we got an issue or 2 of him going around that planet and seeing things. You know, Taylor got to the point real quick of, it's quiet because people are scared. And that's not a Superman thing, right? Superman doesn't inspire fear usually.
No.
So, you know.
Yeah, you could joke that Batman.
To see how
you can joke that Batman would be into this, but obviously part of the plot of Injustice is that Batman is fighting him the whole time because it's too draconian. But there is a joke to be made that Batman's like, fear, you say? Oh, that sounds right up my alley.
Wait, no, too far. He's like, no, you got too far, man. They're too afraid of you. Like, they're holding their breath.
Only the criminals, Clark. Only the criminals need to be scared of you, not the
they're the
public.
Superstitious and cowardly, not the general public. They're cool.
Hell, the entire plot of the Batman movie from last year was only make the bad people fear you because otherwise you're sending a wrong message and you're not, you know.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, no, that's all this issue is doing some really smart things with mashing up these other versions of characters that plays into like John's journey and potentially an interesting journey for Injustice Superman as well. So what are you giving Adventures of Superman John Kent issue 3?
I'm gonna give this an 8.
Yeah, I think it just about ekes out the. I think my only question is that I'm not in love with the art, so I'm kind of wavering a little bit. But I think I'll give it the 8 overall because I still think it's doing a really solid job of the story that's telling.